Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, text 39. We're reading about the universal form described by Brahmins and Narada. Rivayam Ja Tapaloka Tu Amaloka Sanatanaha Rivayam Janalokosya Tapaloka Stanatvaya Murdhadbi Satyalokastu Brahmaloka Sanatanaha Grivayam Janalokosya Tapaloka Stanatvaya Murdhadbi Satyalokastu Brahmaloka Sanatanaha Grivayam Janalokosya Tapaloka Stanatvaya Murdhapi Satyalokastu Brahmaloka Sanatanaha
Rivayam Janalokasya
Rivayam Janalokasya
Molokastanadvayat
Polokastanadvayat
Murdhabi Sachalokastu
Murdhapi Satyalokastu
Amalokasanatanaha
Brahmaloka Sanatanaha
Rivayam Janalokosya
Rivayam Janalokasya
Tapolokastanadvayat
Tapalokastanadvayat
Murdhabi Satyalokastu
Murdhapi Satyalokastu
Brahmaloka Sanatanaha
Brahmaloka Sanatanaha
Grivayam sanalokasya
Grivayam janalokasya
tapoloka stanadvaya
tapalokastanadvayat
murdabi satyalokastu
murdabi satyalokastu
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
Grivayam janalokosha
Grivayam janalokasya
tapalokastanadvayat
tapalokastanadvayat
murdhabi satyalokastu
murdabi satyalokastu
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
Grivayam janalokasya
Grivayam janalokasya
tapalokastanadvayat
tapalokastanadvayat
murdhabi satyalokastu
murdabi satyalokastu
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
Grivayam janalokosya
Grivayam janalokasya
tapolokastanadayat
tapalokastanadvayat
murdabhi satyalokastu
murdhabi satyalokastu
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
Grivayam janalokosya
Grivayam janalokasya
tapoloka stanadvayat
tapalokastanadvayat
murdhadbhi satyalokastu
murdhabi satyalokastu
brahmaloka sanatanaha.
brahmaloka sanatanaha. Was that everyone's chant? Word by word synonyms, Grivayam, up to the neck. Janaloka, the Janaloka planetary system. Asha, of him. Tapoloka, the Tapoloka planetary system. Stanadvayat, beginning from the breast. Murdhabi, by the head. Satyaloka, the Satyaloka planetary system. Two, but Brahmaloka, the spiritual planets. Sanatanaha, eternal. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Many times in these pages, we have discussed the spiritual planets situated beyond the material sky. And the description is corroborated in this verse. The word Sanatana is significant. The very idea of eternity is expressed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text 20, where it is said that beyond the material creation is the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal. Sometimes Satyaloka, the planet in which Brahma resides, is also called Brahmaloka. But the Brahmaloka mentioned here is not the same as the Satyaloka planetary system. This Brahmaloka is eternal, whereas the Satyaloka planetary system is not eternal. And to distinguish between the two, the adjective Sanatana has been used in this case. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, this Brahmaloka is the loka or abode of Brahman, or the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual sky, all the planets are as good as the Lord himself. The Lord is all spirit, and his name, fame, glories, qualities, pastimes, and so forth are all non-different from him because he is absolute. As such, the planets in the kingdom of God are also non-different from him. In those planets, there's no difference between the body and the soul, nor is there any influence of time as we experience it in the material world. And in addition to there being no influence of time, The planets in Brahmaloka, due to being spiritual, are never annihilated. All variegatedness in the spiritual planet is also one with the Lord. And therefore, the Vedic aphorism, Eka Eva Dijatyam, is fully realized in that Sanatana atmosphere of spiritual variegatedness. This material world is only a shadow phantasmagoria of the spiritual kingdom of the Lord. And because it is a shadow, it is never eternal. The variegatedness in the material world duality, spirit and matter, cannot be compared to that of the spiritual world. Because of a poor fund of knowledge, less intelligent persons sometimes mistake the conditions of the shadow world to be equivalent to those of the spiritual world. And thus they mistake the Lord and his pastimes in the material world to be one with the conditioned souls and their activities. The Lord condemns such less intelligent persons in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 11. Avajananti ma mudha manusham tanumasnitam param bhavam ajananto Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram. Wherever the Lord incarnates, he does so in his full eternal potency, Atma Maya, and less intelligent persons mistake him to be one of the material creations. Srila Sridhar Swami, therefore, rightly commenting on this verse, says that the Brahma Loka mentioned here is Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, which is Sanatana, or eternal, and therefore not exactly like the material creations described above. The Virat, universal form of the Lord, is an imagination for the material world. It has nothing to do with the spiritual world or the kingdom of God. So this is a very nice, elaborately arranged purport by Srila Prabhupada, giving reference to the previous acharyas. So yeah, this Brahma Loka, Brahman Loka, is the spiritual sky, where one again returns to the spiritual sky. One will never again return to this miserable world of birth and death. And Krishna says that abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun, moon, or stars, fire, electricity. So it's a self-effulgent. And that part remains as it is, even when the material world is wound up again in its into the body of Mahavishnu and the elements in the subtle forms of Brahman again. So it's eternally manifested and non-manifested material creations, but the Brahma Loka mentioned here, the Brahman Loka, the spiritual world, Vaikuntha sky, is never affected by this appearance and disappearance of matter in the material world. And so as Maharaj was speaking, that in one sense, it was Krishna's separated material energies, the universal form. It does exist. It's a feature, the form of the Lord. And that Prabhupada says it's imaginary. So, we can use our imaginations to take the words of Shastra Chakshusha, seeing through the eyes of knowledge through Shastra. So that's like where the material scientists make their mistake. They want to observe everything themselves, but they're not going to be able to observe non-manifestation and then manifestation of this universe and its annihilation. And then again, non-manifestation and creation again, and creation before non-manifestation, before this creation. But Shastra Chakshusha, we can very easily understand that. So that's what I keep thinking about the devotees of the Lord. We're not exactly rocket scientists, I have the big brain made by Maya, like Einstein or von Braun, rocketry and nuclear physics, and Nikola Tesla, like electricity, like that. But we know what our spiritual master knows, and so that's what's actually really required. But that's the mistake of the material scientists. They don't take the knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vedas. But there was an article in Ishkan Desire Tree, and it was about the specific status and the evolution of religion as it relates to the authority of the Vedas. So basically, it states that the Vedas are emanating from the breathing of Vishnu. Right. The Vedas, they come along with the universe when the universe is created. Brahma, he receives this information in his ecstatic trance and compiles the Brahma Samhita. Krishna explains to him the four Chatur shlokas of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which are expanded. In fact, that's the whole idea that Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord and is also eternal. So now the authority of the Vedas, they instruct that the specific Vedas are mentioned, Rigs, Yajur, Rig, Atharva, and Sama Vedas. And their corollaries, such as Mahabhagavat, Mahabharat, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Jai Gaur Nitai Ki Jai, and the Upanishads, which are mentioned. We have Isha Upanishad, that's the 8th Upanishad. They're just mentioned Kata Upanishad, and I looked that up. That's a discussion between someone by the name of Nikita and Yamaraj. So Yamaraj, he's stating that, he wanted to give how do you pronounce it? Nikita. He gave him 3 boons. So the first boon is he wanted to be recognizable to his father when he returns home. And I'm not sure what the second boon was. But the third boon was he wanted to know about what happens after death. And Yamaraj was just telling him, well, this is a very, very subtle, intricate science. He goes, ask for something else. I ask for wealth, kingdom, animals. I'll make you the king of the world, the emperor of the world. But don't ask me this. And so they're speaking, says, well, as you mentioned, it's a very intricate science. It's very difficult to understand, but this is what I want to know. So these things were being described. He was talking about like a lion in a well. So I was trying to look that up, specifically at the Kata Upanishad, because there was something that we used to discuss. There was a couple of things, like 2 brahmacharis were at the river, and there was a Mataji she needed to get across. So the one brahmachari allowed her to get on his shoulders, and he carried across the river. And then like many hours later, during the day, the other brahmachari goes, man, I can't believe you carried that woman across the river. And he's going, well, I carried a woman across the river, but you carried a woman for 5 more miles. Like that, so that was the whole idea about the mind and contemplating of the objects and the sense objects, attachment and aversion. And then, so there's this thing that we discussed. There was a well, and there's a lion. It's either a lion or a tiger, right? And they're above the well, right? And the person who fell in the well, and he's hanging on to a vine. And down below, the bottom of the well, there's a lion or a tiger. So there's immediate death above and below, right? And the only thing that's keeping you alive right now is hanging onto a vine. And so then there were 2 mice. One was black and one was white, right? So this kind of tells me that this is day and night. They're chewing on the vine, right? So day and night is taking away the life duration of living entities hanging in a well with death above them and death below. And due to illusion, he sees a sumptuous, delicious, sweet strawberry. And he tastes the strawberry and says, oh, how sweet it is. So this is what the purport here, Prabhupada was saying. With the less intelligent, they're going after the shadowy substance, right? And this was like a couple of verses. Less intelligent worship demigods, and their boons are limited and temporary, like that. They're They're enamored by the flowery words of the Vedas, like that. So they're less intelligent. And so then there's the verse. There's a banyan tree with its roots upwards and its branches down. And so Prabhupada said, where do you find an upside down tree? And you find it in a reflection on a river. So this reflection of the real tree, which is the spiritual world, what we're discussing here, the Brahman Loka, right, the Vaikuntha planets, the eternal spiritual sky. But it's a perverted reflection that's being reflected on desire. And it's leaves and branches are the Vedic hymns, and there's so many different other features, or the senses and the sense objects, and the desire, And so duality. So that's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, is that those who are free from the duality of desire and hate and pleasurable and unpleasurable conditions, they become steady and fixed in the consciousness on the Supreme Soul. So that's we had discussed this many times before in the previous chapters, where the Virat Roop is being described. Prabhupada was saying that the Mayavadis, they cannot purify the hearts of their disciples. Only Krishna could do that. A bona fide spiritual master that comes in bona fide disciplic succession under the authority of the Vedas. The Vedas specifically instruct that the one accept a spiritual master in one of the four sampradayas, and these sampradayas specifically mentioned, and that's Kumara, Brahma, Sri, and so, and what's the other one I mentioned? Okay, Kumar. Did I say Kumar? Rudra Sampradaya. Rudra is Shiva. It's another name for Lord Shiva, Rudra Sampradaya. So Rudra Shiva is a great Vaishnav. There's a banyan tree in Navadvip where we were, and this is the tree where Lord Shiva instructed Parvati, and in Srimad Bhagavatam. Well, in fact, that's what they were mentioning in the about this verse also in the class that I listened to on this verse, is that it's specifically instructed that one, at least in their lifetime, visit Dwarka or Vrindavan, Mathura, visit these holy places at least once in their lifetime. But he says that if you go to Navadvip, you visit all of these places all together. They're all stacked up. So when I was there was Devagat. This is where Lord Nrsingadev had rested when after he killed Hiranyakashipu. And we chanted one round in the location, which is the Namasaranya. It was described as actually the center, the hub of the universe. And you could feel there was like an energy there, like it was an energy vortex, and we chanted one round there. It was like one really powerful round. You can hear like all of the devotees were all chanting Hare Krishna, chanting on their beads, and I can like hear the whole atmosphere and just feel the whole thing. I was like totally concentrated, fixed on my round, so it makes it easier for you in your concentration and chanting. And so there's each of the Gaur Mandala. It's all described there. There's an area that's completely identical with Vrindavan. So there's a tree there. It was Kamsa. The other tree was Krishna. And when we were in Vrindavan, there was the tree where Krishna, he sprung, big diving board. He sprung off the tree into the river to kill Kaliya. So there's Kaliya Ghat. And we saw the grinding stone of Lord Damodar. It's there and being worshipped. There was some sand there at a sand pit in Rama. I believe it was not Rama Kelly. I'll have to remember what that is, but there was the sand is spiritual. It doesn't hurt your eyes if you get the sand in your eyes, and so they have sport. They sport in the sand. It's Krishna's play box, and I got some earth and clay in the location where Krishna had eaten the clay, and Mother Jasoda looked into his mouth and saw the complete universe within his mouth. And even saw Krishna on her lap. And struck with wonder, like, what is this? It's some trick of illusion or something. I'm dreaming or hallucinating or something, because she just sees Krishna as in her parental affection as her sweet, lovable little baby boy. She doesn't see him as the embodiment of all of the material and spiritual worlds. And so he was also, I keep saying Maitreya Rishi or Brigamuni. It was Markandeya Rishi. He had a boon that he would not die. And so he was in the Garbhodak waters and he's floating and he's submerging and he's thinking that, he's just going to be there for thousands of years. And then there was a tract of land. He said a Sarabi pulled him up. And he was asking this Rabbi, like, what is this beautiful tract of land? You know, there was the universe was annihilated. There's nothing but dark waters. And it was explained that Navadvip is eternal. It is always manifested and visible, even after the annihilation of the material universe. This tract of land will still remain as it is. So it gave Markandeya Rishi shelter there on this very beautiful island. So Navadvip, that's the tract of land where Lord Chaitanya, he appears in Navadvip, the specific significance of that in this eternal tract of land. So we went to the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. It was basically right down the street from the Mayapur temple. Yeah, it wasn't very far. I was really surprised. We went on Parikram, and yeah, it wasn't very far, maybe about 10 or 20 minutes away. It was just right there. So we got some dust from the tree, from the neem tree where Lord Chaitanya took his birth, where he appeared there. And so let's see what else I can think of that we were mentioning, what we were talking about in the verse. Well, I kind of think about that. Does anybody have any comments or anything they want to make? Yeah, you have a.
So I was just curious about what the effects are when you visit Navadvip, because you said that you get all the benefits from visiting Vrindavan and Mathura. So I was just wondering what the benefits were.
Oh yeah, well, those are a couple of the benefits. That one is one becomes purified by visiting such holy dhams, and it's definitely mentioned or instructed. A strong suggestion. It's an instruction in the Vedas that one should visit these holy places. And Prabhupada was saying that to visit a holy place isn't just to simply take some bath there at the river, buy some souvenir, some gold piece that says, "Oh, I have visited such holy place," but to take instruction from some holy person who lives there, like that. So that was one of the things that we're doing. There was Mahavishnu Swami and I'll have to remember the other names of the sannyasis, Gopal Krishna Goswami. And so they specifically gave us specific instructions at each holy place where we discussed the activities and the significance of this specific area, and discussed the Leela and instructive information like that. So one is definitely purified. It's suggested by going to India and going on Parikram, we recharge our spiritual batteries. So I went with the Sankirtan devotees, Parameshvara and Acharya Chintya, and there was Sri Brahmani. So I got my ticket. I got the same flights that they had, so we traveled together. And Parameshvara knows what to do. He's expert. You know, he had the rupees that were required to pay the taxi drivers. There was from where we arrived first in Delhi, we got on another plane and went to Calcutta. And then from Calcutta, I believe it was quite a few hours drive. It's not like 200 or 400 miles away. It's quite a drive. I think it's like a 4 or 6 hour drive, you know, with a taxi. And they had a bus. It was for the devotees when we went back to the airport from Mayapur, from the Mayapur temple. And so then from Calcutta, when we went back to Delhi, and then from Delhi, it was another like 4 hour drive. So I guess it's not another couple hundred miles, 200 or 400 miles away from the airport there to Vrindavan, where we, and then the devotees, they rolled in the dust of Vrindavan when we arrived there. So the proper way of going to India and arriving in Vrindavan was thinking about Krishna and thinking about Krishna's pastimes like that. And so, yeah, there's a great significance and great, in fact, if one performs sinful activities in the holy Dham, then he'll take the birth as a hog or pig in the next life. Like that. So it's very important not to, in fact, well, you're always at the temple anyways in good association. So there's no real chance of committing sinful activities and falling down. But they have nice stuff, though. I was at the pizzeria and it kind of scared me. I didn't want to walk through Mayapur with a pizza box. I'm quite sure it's kind of far out. But my roommate is from Germany. He was a Pujari in Germany. He was telling me about the small little round pizzas. It's frozen pizza they put in the microwave. It's really pretty good. They make it themselves. Apparently they were out, I saw them serve one. They must have sold the last one. They told me to go upstairs and I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable with that whole thing. Kind of scared me. And then the next morning, the same guy who was running the pizzeria, he was downstairs. I wanted to get some Mon-Sun burfi, kind of settle my stomach because I was taking that medication, that ibuprofen. It was 800 milligram ibuprofen and stuff called tramadol. So I got like a couple pieces of this Mon-Sun burfi, and he was the same guy who was in the pizzeria upstairs. I wouldn't get a pizza, but I'll get some sweets in the morning. He was kind of surprised. I guess he thought maybe I was really staunch and on a false what do we call that? False platform. A false platform of renunciation. Sometimes I'm going to be renounced now. Right. Like that. So there's what do you call it? Like a fair medium. There's two sides to every coin, attraction and aversion, but you need to be steady in the presence of both. Jai Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So yeah, that's the thing that I keep thinking, like, when I go to the store, I'm on my japa walk or whatever. There's the verse in Bhagavad Gita that the learned sage sees with equal vision the dog, the elephant, the cow, the brahmana, the vaishya, and the dog eater, the tree, right? And you see the spiritual spark, and you see super soul next to super soul. And I've always been meditating, and I saw why. I have a picture of Vishnu, Vishnu Dakshai Vishnu, with from lower right all the way around. There was let's see, like conch shell in the top right. So the bottom right, there was the lotus flower, and then in top left there was disc, Shirshan chakra, and then in bottom left is the club. But the Janardana describes, I slightly changed my medication a little bit. Janardana described in the previous chapters that we were discussing about the Virat Rup, the universal form of the Lord, is the bottom right is club, and the top right is wheel of a chariot, or disc, but specifically mentioned wheel of a chariot. And then top left is conch shell, and the bottom left is the lotus flower. Like that. So, and I was challenging myself and quizzing myself because it keeps starting with lotus flower, conch shell, disc, club. So basically, I wanted to quiz myself and give myself some points about how much easier spontaneously I go club, wheel of a chariot, conch shell, and lotus flower, right? So it was a learned sage sees with equal vision, lady walking with baby in stroller, man walking his dog. Like that. So I kind of think like that, the attraction and aversion of the material forms. Like that, so it says being like adverse or attracted, it's like, there's a whole other thing, but to see with equal vision, like that Prabhupada is saying, when you see a tree, just don't see a tree, but see Krishna's energy, see Krishna's energy and Krishna's Paramatma and the soul, that this is a living entity and trapped in this specific body, so to see on the spiritual platform like that. And Prabhupada was saying that, that we see Krishna, we're seeing Krishna every day, and not so much even, as the form of the deity, which is required, and the deity is the most worshipful object here. Everything surrounds the deity, and Lord Chaitanya is Radha Krishna. And Lord Nityananda is Balaram. So this is specifically identical. It's the same place as Vrindavan or Navadvip. It's just as good as the abode of the Lord is just as good as the Lord himself. So Lord Balaram, he actually becomes the worshipful items and becomes Krishna's bed, Krishna's clothes, the arctic items, as a servitor, as a personality of servitor of Godhead. So this is a nice meditation to think of that these items, they're spiritual, they're Balaram, and they're used for worshiping the Supreme Lord. And I think I'm kind of losing my train of thought there. So I guess we're talking about the absolute nature of the Lord. That's what they were speaking about. The Lord is identical with the spiritual Vaikuntha planets. What was being discussed is the how it's mentioned there are the superior forms of the Lord, then the lesser superior forms of the Lord, and those that are mentioned as the superior forms of the Lord. Was this in the previous reports? Is Krishna possesses, he is the most perfect. Yeah, I think it kind of reminded me of something from Nectar Devotion. Krishna is the most perfect. And then in the perfect forms of the Lord include Balaram, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. There's the Chaturvyudha. There's two Chaturvyudhas, both of the same name, where Balaram expands as Vishnu and as Anantasesha. So this is the Vasudev. Let's see, Vasudev, Aniruddha, Pradyumna. Yeah, I'm missing one because there's, and it's Sankarshan. Yeah, Sankarshan is specifically Anantasesha, or Vasudev specifically is Vishnu. So Sankarshan in the form of Seshanaga, thousand-headed serpent, is lying on the causal ocean and in the Garbadak ocean with 1,000 heads, glorifying the Supreme Lord, never coming to an end, always having a new, fresh pastime to speak about, because the Lord is unlimited, and becomes the servant of the Lord by giving him comfort to recline on the couch bed of Seshanaga. And then the Chaturvyudha expands again, and that's also from Sankarshan. It's also the same names again, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. And I think it was just on the tip of my tongue. It's something that I was just now thinking about, that maybe that's what I think we were discussing. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of the Lord, and it's eternal, just as the Vedas are eternal. And that's one thing that they were discussing when the Kali Yuga began, and they gave a specific exact date of February 28th, and it was almost 2,000 years BCE, where Kali Yuga began. And they were speaking about somebody, I've heard of Zozar before. It was King Zozar Attar. He was like a king of Egypt, but this was in the region of the Sindus River, which they pronounce Hindus because they don't say their S's, the Sindus River, and which is now in Prussia. But Zozar introduced this concept of a duality of two separate opposing deities, one who later became the name of Satan and the other one was known as God. So they're discussing how these specific Western and Eastern, Middle Eastern concepts of religion started to manifest within the Kali Yuga, and less importance was given on the Vedas. And then again, this area was invaded. It was convert to the Muslim religion by the sword. And so in that way, so much of the Vedic tradition was lost. But what did remain intact was the parampara disciplic succession. And so that did remain. They even mentioned that many temples were actually completely destroyed like that. So there's a really good article on Ishkan Desire Tree, the specific evolution of the Western modern concepts of religion and spirituality and the specific authority of the Vedas. So that's basically really the mistake of the modern scientists, the philosophers, the modern day religionists, trying to explain it in their own way, rather than taking the knowledge and instruction and division, the Shastri Chakshasha of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. But we can stretch our minds. Within our minds, we can use our imagination and visualize the universal form of the Lord, or visualize Vishnu within the hearts. Because that's what was mentioned in the previous chapters, that after the meditation of the Vrat Roop, then the yogi, he enters the specific elements of the senses and the sense objects into their specific elements. As the eyes and sight, seeing into the sun or into fire, smell into the earth, and touch into the air, and taste into the water. So by that way, he amalgamates the senses into the sense objects into the specific material ingredients, and enters the mind into the self, and then the self into the super self. So that's what's mentioned. You remember those verses? So so we can meditate on the super soul in the heart. There are great descriptions given there. How Krishna, he appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva with bright yellow garments as bright as lightning, and shark-shaped earrings, and pearl necklaces, and great costly jewels with bangles and rings and anklets and toe rings, and a garland of beautiful flowers, holding the respective well, they're not weapons, but it's symbols. Actually, there's 2 of these symbols are for the demons, and 2 of these symbols are for the devotees. Now, the club is for the demons, and the wheel of chariot is for the demons, or Sudarshan chakra disc. And then the conch shell and the lotus flower, that's for the devotees. The devotees becoming glad when they hear the conch shell. And Lord Vishnu blesses the devotee by touching them with this lotus flower when they're being favored by the Supreme Lord. So was there any other questions or comments, or maybe we can end class there? Srimad Bhagavatam class, Ki Jai.